Hi, everybody, and welcome to the next in the series of Workplace Culture 2021 Conversations. I'm Graeme Codrington. Today, I'm joined by Dean van Leeuwen. I'm based in Johannesburg. Dean is based, I never remember the name of the village. Dean, south of London, I was going to say, but I'm also south of London. Yeah. How are you, Dean? And tell us where you're from.
Originally from, I guess, south of the Thames. As people recognize, it's have a South African accent. Living in London or south of London, just outside of the M25, small little village in Surrey Hills, kind of between Guildford and Dorking. A lovely part of the world. Really, really pretty. Really English country lanes and all of the rest.
And I know that today you're busy fighting with your lighting because you've actually got brilliant sunshine beaming into your house today. I mean, that's fairly unusual this time of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we're having a lovely start to winter. It's pretty mild. We had a bit of a chill, and now it's actually quite lovely. So, I think people's perceptions of as you know, Graeme, because you've spent a few years here, you think of it grey and raining, but it's not really always that bad, especially in the south. I think up north, Scotland, Wales, Yorkshire, those places is pretty horrid. But down south, we're benefiting from global warming, I guess. Coral seas off the English Channel. Yeah,
there are some places that are going to get benefits from that. Anyway, Dean, let's welcome everybody who's joined us. If you are joining us, we're expecting there are 100 people who are signed up, but I know a lot of people these days sign up and then watch later in their own time. So I don't know how many people we're going to get live, but if you are live with us, why don't you just hop over to the chat box, let us know where you are, and if it's of any interest to you or us, tell us what the weather is in your place, who cares? But let us know anyway. It's great to be connected. It'll be great to just know where you are logging in from. Dean, let's dive into the conversation. I'm really thrilled to be able to chat to you today. Yeah. I've had an issue, and this is why I've set up these conversations through November. As I've been chatting to my clients, and I think you've had a similar experience, as people are thinking ahead to 2021, we now know that COVID isn't going to disappear. COVID doesn't have a calendar. It's not going to just say, oh, it's the end of 2020, I'll leave now. Sadly, whatever happens, there may or may not be vaccines. Well, there will be vaccines, but they may or may not come quickly. Even if they came quickly, will everybody take them? Even if everybody takes them, are they lastingly effective? All sorts of questions. It's a VUCA world and will remain a VUCA world well into next year because of COVID. But then even after COVID is history. It's still a VUCA world anyway, right? Yeah, there's deep disruption in the system. And if 2020 has taught us anything, it's taught us that we need to learn how to live with disruption, not just through disruption, not just gritting our teeth and kind of making it through a crisis, but that disruption is the new reality. And as people think about that, as people start to make their plans for next year, I just really wanted to give them some helpful insights, speak to people I know have got something important and helpful to say in this space. And so, Dean, I'm not even sure I've got a list of questions for you. I just know we're going to have a great conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
What do you think is the most important thing, or the two or three most important things that business leaders need to be thinking about as they look ahead for planning 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, no, Graeme, it's great. Place to start the discussion. I think our clients I've been speaking to many of the CEOs around the UK and Europe, and there was a growing sense that we would struggle through COVID, we'd focus on it, we'd conquer it, and then we'd move on. And just this week, I was speaking to one of the CEOs, and she said to me, we're starting to recognize this is not going to go away. And I kind of went, well, duh, it's something we've been saying for quite a while. We are going to have to learn to live with the pandemic, and not only just COVID. There's growing probability that we could end up living with 2 or 3 pandemics. Unless we get rid of wet markets and illegal animal trade, it's just the amount of people immigrating into cities and migration on steroids from rural to urban areas and wet markets and so on. It's just a powder keg for future pandemics. So that's a real worry, and we've seen just how disruptive pandemics can be. But it's not just the COVID. There are many other disruptive forces that are having a huge impact, and many of them were here before. Graeme, we talk about artificial intelligence and automation, robotics, climate change, all of these big disruptive forces. And let me show you. I've got a slide here. Let me just put this. So if everyone can see that, there are at least sort of 7 really big disruptive forces that are coming together, and they're colliding with this hurricane amplifying pandemic. Food security, climate change, geopolitics, populism. All of these things are just colliding with the pandemic, and they're creating a perfect storm. And this is a big issue, and leaders need to think about the broader context. Pandemics, COVID-19 is not going away, but there are other forces as well, and we need to lift up our vision and start to begin to explore and understand and experiment with what these forces mean. But
I absolutely agree, Dean, that probably the most important thing that people need to think about is building responsiveness to disruption into their system. Yeah. Now, there might be other words for it than that. I actually like the word adaptability, but resilience is in there, flexibility is in there. There's a whole lot of things. So whatever language we want to use, it's ultimately responsiveness to disruption. Now, let me do a slightly better job of introducing you, because maybe people don't know who you are, or maybe even don't know who I am. So Dean and I have been colleagues in a company called Tomorrow Today Global for many years, and we are futurists. We look at the future. We try and anticipate these disruptive forces. But more and more over the last few years, we've realized that often people think of futurists as people who try and make predictions, and we're talking about far distant futures. Just more and more over the last few years, we realized disruption is here. The future trends that we were looking at in the future are at our front door now. And so Dean, a few years ago, and kind of about a year ago in anger, I was going to say, not in anger, but like focused his energy on building a consulting vehicle, which we call Tomorrow Today Consulting, and focusing on saying, okay, we know disruption is coming, and part of the process is to understand which disruptions are important. But then much more important these days is to now build the organizational capacity to respond to disruption. So Dean, what is the process, or what are the key things that people need to do in order to do that, and be responsive to disruption?
Yeah, so Graeme, I think the first thing to think about is, why do these things? Why prepare yourself for these disruptions? We, like you said, we've been called futurists, but actually the more powerful thing is, rather than predicting the future, is to look at these disruptive forces and then think about how you can create the future. The future doesn't just happen. People create the future. And I think that the COVID-19 is actually a gift. It's a gift to us. It's a gift that mustn't be squandered, because we have now an amazing opportunity to really look at the world and think about how we can build back better, how we can create a better future. We are living during a transitionary point between two revolutions, the third industrial revolution, what's been called the fourth industrial revolution. We're not actually in the fourth industrial revolution at the moment. We're at that transitioning point. And you can see these moments in history every 150, every 200 years. Forces of progress come together, they collide, and the world is never the same again. And that's the disruption that we are experiencing. Now, the ancient Greeks had a lovely term for these periods of disruption. They called them kairos. And during kairos, the leaders who are tuned towards change can seize opportunity to create a better and a different world. And that's where we are. So we've been doing consulting work with our clients for the last, probably 10 years, but increasingly focusing our attention here over the last 5 and 6 years. Last year, we decided that we were going to launch the Tomorrow Today Consulting brand, largely because we were a little bit frustrated. We were seeing the huge potential of this new breakthrough technology, and there's massive, big problems in the world. And we wanted to help our clients to really deal with this disruption. So as you know, Graeme, we launched at the end of last year, and fortuitously, I think, because we weren't able to predict when COVID-19 was going to happen, but we've been talking about pandemics as a disruptive force for the last 12 years. And just as this big disruption happened, we were out there saying to our clients, come on, let's understand these disruptive forces and work with us let's help you. We'll create the future.
No, I mean, certainly at that level, COVID has you used the language of gift. I'm going to now say that COVID has helped us. Neither of us want to downplay the impact that COVID has had, obviously, personally or organizationally. But having said that, we've, as you said, Dean, we've been spending a decade or so trying to convince people that deep disruption is coming.
Yeah.
Now we don't have to have the first half of the conversation.
No,
everybody recognizes disruption now that we're living with it. But our view is that as much as COVID has been a disruptor, all the other disruptors that are in the system, those 7 that Dean put up, those are all there, and they have just as much potential to change geopolitics, economics, the way we live. And we're not joking about this, that we think that COVID is just the warm-up act for the rest of the 2020s.
Yeah.
So if we've got people's attention, Dean, and if people are saying, okay, I agree with you that we've got to keep an eye on disruption. And I also agree with you that we mustn't just let disruption happen to us. We mustn't just sit back and allow it to arrive, and then we get into how do I respond mode.
Yeah.
What's the process? How do you help people to actually, and what can we give people who even watch this webinar or the recording of it later? What can we give them as they planning for 2021 to help them get ahead of some of these disruptions?
So I think we've got to recognize, Graeme, that there are no roadmaps during these periods of kairos. There are no roadmaps. We've never been here before, and importantly, what's kind of got you here is not going to get you into the future. So you need to think of yourselves as explorers in this new age of discovery. And what do explorers do? Well, we explorers embark on quests. They look at the world, they look at the challenges, and they embark on adventures. They go to places where people have never been before. And then they come back with new knowledge and riches. They share that knowledge internally, and the organization moves on. So the big thing, that there's always a talk about creating a culture of innovation in organizations, and innovation is massively important. But we think that what you need to do today is actually start to create a culture of exploration, and that needs to be overlaid over the top of innovation. And exploration, I think, is all about this. We've done a lot of research on great explorer leaders and what they are doing. And let me just share this with you. So this is what great explorer organizations and leaders are doing. There are 7 traits, and they are very curious. They are empathetic. They are creative. They are intuitive, inspirational, collaborative. And they have, the words you were using, Graeme, agile and resilient. And these are the really core traits that we need to build within our organization in order to create the advantage going forward in this decade of disruption. What are your thoughts on that, Graeme?
I really like that list, because it's not the standard list of trust, integrity, respect, and customer service, that a lot of companies think is going to differentiate them from everybody else and get them through. And I think it also takes us beyond just the putting innovation on your wish list.
Yeah.
Every company's got innovation on their wish list, but not a lot of companies are prepared to build the culture that will give them innovation. Innovation is an outcome. It's not an input. You can't just send a memo and say, we will have innovation next year.
No.
What you've got to do is you've got to build an organizational culture that does this. So, I mean, those words make a lot of sense to me, because those are the building blocks, right? Yeah. And they also then turn themselves into behaviors that we can actually identify, being curious, for example. We can sit in a meeting. Now, maybe those who are listening to this, do this little test next time you have a team meeting. Just sit back, have a piece of paper. Yeah, let's get that list up there for you. Have a piece of paper around and mark down every time somebody asks a question. Not a clarifying question like, what did you say? Or please repeat that, but a genuine question. I bet you that you will discover that most of your team meetings go by without people asking genuine curiosity-led questions. They ask clarifying questions, and they might ask a question like, were you speaking to me? But they don't ask why and how questions.
Yeah, Graeme, really great point. So there's a fantastic book called Humble Inquiry. It was written by Edgar Schein. And he talks about the importance of leaders learning how to just ask really humble questions without any agenda and just really inquiring, being curious. And I think that's probably one of the most important skills as you look towards the forward in this disruptive world, is be curious about what's happening around you, and don't use the dogmas of the past, the lessons that you've learned from the past to influence what you think the outcome will be. Just be honestly open and curious.
So, Dean, are there methods or tools or frameworks that we can use to help people, help organizations to actually get this stuff into their business?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Graeme, we've created a model that we call the 3E model. And the 3E model looks at exploring, evaluating, and then embarking. So let me show you. I'll put the slide up here on the screen. So this is how we believe that organizations can really build advantage in the 2020s. So you need to think about exploring, being really open to what's happening around you. Explore internally. We often find there's great untapped knowledge within your leadership team and people in your organization, because often they're at the coalface and they're seeing the changes that are happening around them. They are hearing from customers and seeing the behavioral changes of customers. So there's rich information within your organization. And we kind of split the explore phase into two sections. The first section looks internally, and it explores with your teams, with your people, what they are seeing, what they are thinking. We spend a lot of time asking them questions, and we collate all of this data, and we share this around the business. And it's really important that you do this, because when you're working on you're going to have massive transformation during periods of disruption, and you need buy-in. You need people to understand where you are going and why you are going in a certain direction. And if you ask them really humbly what are their views, people begin to think about these issues, and they very willingly contribute their ideas. And then you share this data around the company, and people start to see, there was my voice. That's what I've been saying, and people are listening now. And you gain wonderful buy-in through this approach. The next thing we do is we then start to explore externally. And we invite experts from Silicon Valley, from all around the world, leading CEOs and mavericks who are doing lots of disruptive things. And we invite them to a webinar. And this is a wonderful thing, I feel, about how we've moved to this virtual world, because you can now tap the knowledge of these amazing thought leaders around the world. And we go out there and we approach them via Twitter and LinkedIn. And I'm always amazed at the generosity that these people show. And I think it's because you're asking them for their insights, and they're really willing to share them. So we have these wonderful webinar series with experts, and we broadcast this around the company, and they're allowed to ask these experts questions. And it's a really fun and energetic and enlightening sessions. And then we take all of this information, and then we then start to workshop it. And we spend time thinking about what are the future scenarios. And then we start to think about what are the quests that you can go on as an organization. Where can you have a really big impact? What are the things that you can do that will inspire not just the people who work with you, but also the people, your customers, your suppliers, partners. And then we think about the pathways. So we come up with these great inspirational quests, and then we look at the pathways. What are the pathways that you could journey on, which you could embark on to achieve these quests? So once we've all done all of that exploration, we then spend time evaluating. So what do they mean for your business? Is your DNA, is your culture, is it up for achieving, for embarking on these journeys? What needs to change? What would you have to do? What are the actions, the initiatives that will bring these pathways to life? And then we start working with our clients around actually closing the gaps. What are the competencies that they need to work on in order to embark on these journeys? What are the new skills? How do we get people on board and you're excited about them? And what are the teams? Many companies are faced with the challenge that they have their current business platform, and they have to focus on that. They have to keep money coming in to pay for everything. So we break it down into these small pathways and quests, and we send teams off on explorations, bring back knowledge, learn, and that's how we help our clients to then embark and deliver on these strategies. So it's a great framework, and it really helps our clients to think about the future. And again, this is not about predicting the future. This is about really creating the future that you want. At least trying, at least having a real effort and impact to make a difference in this world. So that's kind of the approach that we use.
Yeah. So Dean, I know that you guys are at the consulting side are very generous with your insights, and that if people go to the TomorrowToday.Consulting, so it's not a .com, it's a TomorrowToday, all one word, .consulting, they can pick up a whole lot of stuff that you've put out. So you've put out a post-COVID recovery manual. You've put out a whole lot of documents that help people think through this. And to be honest, some organizations might be set up well enough to be able to go through this process themselves, just following some of the guidelines that you give. So TomorrowToday.Consulting is the website to go to.
Yeah, one of the things that an article that I think was really, really useful and pertinent at the moment is a section that we've written called some 19 great questions to ask as we exit or as we go back into lockdown, and certainly in the UK. And these are kind of powerful questions that leaders should be asking about their organization. So that would be a great place to start. And those questions can be introduced during team meetings. You could send them out to your staff and say, well, what do you think the answers to these questions are? Again, it's about being curious. It's about exploring. So there's a great resource that companies, leaders can take. It's a free resource. 19 questions. Go and ask your teams what they think the answers are for. Workshop them, brainstorm them.
And that starts the whole explore process, which then leads you into that embarking on looking for the future. Yeah. Talking of questions, the great value of being live with us is that you can ask questions, and you can pop that into the chat box. So Dean, one of our longtime friends from Tomorrow Today, Dil Sidhu, has thrown in a question. If you want to just get those 7 forces again, because Dil's referred to them, and we just popped them up on screen to show people. Let's do that. There we go. So Dil said, fantastic. He likes the 7 forces, and it forces companies to not just focus maybe on the area that they would typically focus on in their environment. A lot of companies, for example, focusing on number 5, automation and AI and so on. But this forces us to think more. Dil's question, Dean, is this. Is there a priority approach to these? You've got them numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mm-hmm. Is there a particular priority in the 7? Should we just look at all of them? How would you answer, Dil, there?
Yeah, I would have a look at them and prioritize them against what you think is most important and what's having the greatest impact for your business and your industry. So certainly they're not ranked as 1 to 7 or as most important. It's thinking about, well, what are the ones that are going to have an impact for you, and which space can you play in? and have the greatest impact. So if you are doing a lot of work around AI and automation, or you're seeing your industry being really disrupted by that, of course, naturally, you're going to spend a lot of time focusing on that. Well, what we are seeing is, many of the CEOs that we work with are saying, at the moment, we're just focused on COVID. And our clients are just focused on COVID, and things like climate change and so on have just been pushed to the side. I think AI and automation is on the up because, while people can't come into work, people are getting infected. AI and automation is one way of getting around that. So there's been a natural boost in the interest in pursuing that strategy. I think a number of companies that have really accelerated the work that they're doing in the space is really, really great. But look at all of the forces. Think about what impact they're going to have, and also think about the timelines. Where do you imagine these forces are going to have during a timeline over this next sort of 10 years? When do you think they will hit, and how can you prepare yourself for that? So the model itself is really about saying, broaden your horizon, look up, lift up the curtain, look over the horizon and see and think about the impact. Don't just focus on COVID. And we talk about this as a perfect storm. And the challenge, the problem with the perfect storm, you see all these forces colliding and coming together, and you have this massive storm. And most businesses, I think, are going to go, right, if we batten down the hatches, we weather the storm, we're going to get through it. What got us here will get us there. We'll make a few changes, bolt down the chairs, things like that, but, we'll get through this. They may never be seen again, and that's the problem. We've got to look at everything that's happening out there, and think more broadly about the impact in your industry. Otherwise, you're going to get caught out. That's I think a message that we put to our clients. You will get caught out if you're not looking at all of these forces.
Dean, we've got just a few minutes left. There are now other questions coming in. You've got a few minutes in the questions there.
We talk about disruption, don't we? And it's a great example.
I know your dogs, and that's not a dog that can be kept quiet. So this is the new reality. I'm sure we're fine with it. Yeah. So, Dean, my final question to you, and I'll give you a moment to think about it while I give my answer to my own question, is what would be the most important thing that a leader or a leadership team could be thinking about as they do their planning for 2021? For my answer to that question, and I know your answer will be around explorer leaders and what being an explorer means, but my answer is that I think that you should be making your structure your strategy. So I'm seeing a lot of people who are doing planning for 2021 almost as if COVID hasn't happened. Now, obviously, COVID's happened, and they realize COVID's happened, but they're going through the same process they're always going through. They're looking ahead at next year, and they're thinking, I wonder what our market is going to be like. Is it going to be improving? Is it going to be decreasing? What's the GDP going to be doing? Is it going to be 2% up or 5% down? And they're basically taking what they've done before and tweaking it. Yeah. Just trying to look for the economic percentage increase or decrease impact of COVID. And I'm saying, haven't you noticed that COVID's changed everything? We've now got people working from home, with barking dogs in the background. We've got disruptions of supply chains. We've got shifts in geopolitics. Have you forgotten about Brexit? Have you seen who the new president of America is, or the fact that they don't even know who the new president is yet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Have you not realized climate change coming onto the agenda? All the things we've been talking about. And my view is that you shouldn't build a set of scenarios, with a high road and a medium road and a low road, and then, those are your plans for 2021. You actually need to take this moment of disruption. You used the language of gift earlier. I think that's right. Take this moment of disruption and say, we are being forced to be disrupted. Let's build responsive capabilities into our DNA. In other words, the number one item on your strategy list for 2021 should be building adaptability. And that means making your structure your strategy for 2021. So that's my answer to the question. What's your answer? What do you think should be the number one focus for senior leaders in 2021?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think we've got to look at this decade, a decade of disruption, and think about what needs to be done now, today, I guess, to have an impact in tomorrow's world and build that advantage and competitive advantage. Now, we are kind of seeing 5 imperatives that we call that leaders and organizations should be focusing on. And some of them are pretty big, but we feel that you need to start focusing on these now. So the first one is being a force for good. Customers are looking around and saying, if you're not part of the solutions to the challenges of this world, we're just not interested in doing work with you. And they're doing well by doing good. Movement has gone mainstream with the Business Roundtable, which is a think tank in the US with 181 CEOs, 15 million employees. I think it's about $3 trillion of revenue. They are saying that the purpose of an organization is now not just shareholder return, but returns to all stakeholders. So you need to understand what being a force for good means for your business, and you need to start doing things, because by the end of this decade, if you're not being a force for good, and it's not even by the end of this decade, within the next 3 to 5 years, if you're not being a force for good, you're going to start losing market share, you're going to start losing customers. We need to learn how to be bionic, and by being bionic, I mean you've got to learn how to take the best of machine learning, AI, automation, and we need to combine that with those traits that I showed you, the truly human essential traits. We need to augment our organizations with the machines and human capabilities. We need to build ecosystems. We need to build platforms that can really add benefit. I've got a few. Let me just show you the slide, Graeme. It's
Dean, I'm just helping people to summarize this. You said there were 5 things: be a force for good, be bionic.
So be a force for good, be bionic, build a culture of exploration, which we've been talking about. Be inclusive and diverse. And I think there's a third one is generous. Be generous with your time. Be generous with learning about other cultures. And then the 5th one is build ecosystems. And within all of that, I totally agree. Adaptability and resilience are key cornerstones. And I think the adaptability and resilience needs to be part of the culture of exploration that you build. Because when you embark on these adventures, you have a destination that you're tracking towards. But things change. You may come across a dead end. You may come across a block in your journey. But if you know what that destination is, you just reroute. And that's the power of building this culture of exploration, is that when you know what the destination is, your teams, your leaders can just reroute. They don't need a map. We know the destination. So it's like a GPS. We just reroute and we carry on. So those are the kind of 5 things that I think organizations should be focusing on now, and looking at those 7 forces, understanding how that's changing, and using these sort of 5 imperatives and how they can explore, evaluate, and then embark on the journeys.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dean. And that kind of sums up what I'm trying to say to my clients as well, that don't just try to survive COVID. Realize that COVID gives you the opportunity to set up for success in the rest of the decade. Now, Dean, thanks so much for your time. I don't know if you're just sitting very still or if you've frozen. I think you've frozen a little bit, Dean. Hopefully you'll come back in a second, because I want to say thank you for your time. But I know we only just had over half an hour to chat, so maybe your system has logged you out there. But thank you, everybody, for joining us in this webinar, for having a chat with Dean. I hope that was useful and insightful for you as you plan ahead for 2021. Don't forget to look up the resources that Dean and his team have made available at TomorrowToday.Consulting, and you'll be able to find all of their resources and make contact directly with Dean and his team if you want to. I did have one private question come in asking what technology was Dean using to kind of move himself around and put his slides up. And he and I chatted about that before we got going. So I can answer that question for him. He's using a piece of software called I'm not joking. It's mmhmm.com, I think. You can go and have a look, but it's called I use Ecamm Live. There's another piece of software called OBS, which allows you to do what Dean was doing. He's got a green screen and then to work with slides and things. But the latest one that he was experimenting with was great name. I like it. Okay. Well, that's us for today. Thank you for being part of this webinar. Dean has joined back in the room.
There we go.
No problem at all. I was just actually telling people, Dean, just while you get yourself switched on, we're basically just closing out. But I had a private question, somebody asking about your software. So I was explaining about and put it into the chat box. It's not the easiest name to then just say to people and say, go search for .com. Maybe they didn't think that one quite
The founder makes a bit of a joke about it. He says it's the kind of name you need for a company when you're sitting on the toilet eating a sandwich and you go, It's stuck with me. It's an image you don't want to go there, but it's.
I'm just going to say he can promote his company the way he wants to. I think I might have slightly different branding thoughts. But Dean, thank you so much for your time, and I've given people all your contact details and encourage people to get hold of you if they want to learn more about being an Explorer leader. Dean, I'll leave the last word with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, Graeme, thanks very much for the invitation to come and speak on your forum. It's just been wonderful. Thanks everyone for attending, and for those of you who are going to watch the recording later, if you have any questions, thoughts, observations, please feel free to email me or email Graeme. And all of the best. This is, I think, I said to Graeme that disruption is a gift. And if disruption can have huge trauma in your life, in your business. I've faced some massive disruption. I was diagnosed with cancer a few years ago, and you can be downtrodden, but if you turn it around and look at disruption as a gift, you can go away and achieve great things. And that's my wish for you going forward in this decade of disruption, is that you use it as a platform for amazing things, that you use it as a platform to achieve remarkable things, and that you go out there, you be a force for good, use your sphere of influence to do great stuff in this world. And if you want to know how, give Tomorrow Today Consulting a call, drop us an email, have a look at the resources on our website, and we'd love to share a coffee with you, even if it's coffee virtually. So yeah, Graeme, thanks very much for the opportunity. It's great talking with you.
Cheers. Thanks, Dean. Cheers. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Well.
Cheers, everyone.